Hey, Chris.
Okay.
Hey, welcome everyone to the SoCal Car Scene Podcast, the exclusive place for coverage of car culture in Southern California and the personalities that drive it. I'm your host, Dean Marash. Joining us today is car fabricator, designer, and builder, Chris Ashton. But before we get started, I need to let you know that this broadcast is brought to you by our good friends at SeaTech and Wicked Automotive Detailing. Please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, the SoCal Car Scene, because you never want to miss an episode, right? Let me take a few minutes and introduce you to our really cool guest, Chris Ashton. Today, back on our show, we're fortunate enough to have one of our awesome SoCal Classic Car Storage customers, Chris Ashton. Chris has worked in computer game development for 25 years and has co-owned Turtle Rock Studios for more than a decade. During his career, he has helped ship numerous AAA games such as Command and Conquer, Red Alert 2, Counter-Strike, Left 4 Dead, Evolve, and Back 4 Blood. I'm sure there's a few others that I forgot, or I didn't update this, so Chris will straighten us out in a few minutes. He's also an avid car enthusiast, a fabricator. Chris has owned fast cars since he was a teen and has been high performance driving and shredding tires for 20-something years. He currently owns a 67 Dodge Dart with a Hellcat motor. What? A Superformance GT40, a Super Cobra FIA, and a Pro Touring 1970 fastback Mustang called the Ruffian, and I'm sure you've heard of her, that he built himself and launched at SEMA a few years ago. And I didn't get them all. That was just scratching the surface. Hey, Chris, thanks for rejoining us on the SoCal Car Scene.
Yeah, awesome. Nice to be back.
Right on, bud. So the idea here was, Chris, you got so much cool stuff going on. The Ruffian's done, sort of behind you. We wanted to, get you back in the studio, which is now virtual. Okay, the first time we had you in the studio, you actually came to the studio, and that's before we did this video thing, So we really upped our game, but I think we had to because of COVID.
Yeah, I think everybody's dealing with that. We're getting better and better at this remote work thing, video conferencing and whatnot, unfortunately.
Yeah, but it gives us an opportunity to see you in the wilds in your environment, and that's what I'm excited about. So thanks for taking the time to set us up where the action's at. So first of all, before we get started on the car stuff, how's the battle against Mother Nature in the canyons of Southern California? Have you stopped the madness for a few minutes?
Yeah, we haven't caught back up yet, but for everybody else, we had pretty bad fires here, and the fires right behind my house is a mountain, and so our house is right up against the hillside, and the fire came all the way down, and scorched the eaves and melted some roof shingles, but that was about it. And so we thought we were lucky, and we thought we made it, and then it rained, and there's no vegetation, and all the rain washes all the mud down the hill, and we got buried in about 3 feet of mud. Took us 2 days to shovel that out, and then it rained again, same thing, but even worse. And then we took care of that. And then this last time, it took five semi like dump truck loads of mud out of the backyard and back of the house in order to unbury us. So it's been a heck of an experience. So it feels like I'm shoveling dirt a lot more than I am wrenching on cars right now.
Hey, you'll get back to cars. Don't worry, it's Southern California. We stopped raining in February, and then summer for 20 months, and then the fires start again. Anyway, sorry about your misfortune, Chris. I know what you'd rather be doing. So tell us about where you're situated right now. Is this where great stuff happens for you and all your cars?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on a new property that has a detached garage. It's a little bit bigger, but this is my two car garage, and I am fortunate enough to own a house. I say that, and then we have mud, but yeah, this has been our house. We've lived here for 8 years, and 3-4 years ago is when I started the Ruffian in here, and it kind of took over. And I had boxes under it, and it was up on this, I got this 4-foot lift, and I had boxes and everything always under it, and it was up and down, and So then I finished that, and now the GT40 is here. And the GT40 project has taken up even more space. So now I've got this machine. There is a big old 3D printer. It's a large format 3D printer. The Superformance GT40s, as you might know, are fiberglass bodies. Everything I did on the Ruffian was metal. So I had a English wheel and a planishing hammer. It was all steel work. And now I'm into fiberglass. And so what we do with the 3D printer is we design new body parts on the computer, and then we print them out in 3D, and then we use those to make molds from, and then we'll make the body panels out of carbon fiber or fiberglass and go that way. So it's completely different. It's an entirely different process, even though it's still going to be Ruffian style. It's still going to be a wide body GT40. It's still going to be pretty extreme. But it's a completely different process than the Mustang was.
Does the 3D printing lend itself better for a fiberglass car versus a metal car, or not so much?
I guess so, because you can pull a mold off of the 3D print and then reproduce that in fiberglass quite easily. Even if you 3D print a fender in plastic on the 3D printer, like reproducing that in steel, there's not an easy way to do that other than to
I would think so.
work it by hand.
Well, it's interesting that now you're working with a totally different set of materials on such a contrasting different car, but it's going to be part of the Ruffian family. And so maybe tell everybody what Ruffian means. I mean, if GT40, blue GT40 is part of the Ruffian family, what does Ruffian really mean? I mean, we all know what the Mustang came out like, and it's badass, and it stops traffic, and people want to take pictures, and people want to give you their babies in exchange for it. Maybe you didn't hear that one, but Ruffian means something, right?
Yeah. It was spawned by the Mustang. I was building a Mustang, and I was building it to represent and to kind of mimic in a lot of ways the Trans Am race cars in the late 60s and early 70s. So I was building towards that, but it was always intended to be a street car. So it's basically a race car for the street. And since it was a Mustang, which is a horse, but it was a race car version, I started looking up, I wanted a name, and I started looking up like racehorses, like famous racehorses.
Right.
And as you know, with the Ruffian, it's wide body. My Mustang is wide body. It's got an LS motor in it. It's not traditional by any means, and I'm breaking a lot of the rules. So when I saw that there was a famous racehorse named the Ruffian, I felt like, man, that's a perfect name for the Mustang,
Right.
And so really it started as a name for the Mustang, but then I got done with the Mustang, and I wanted to and I was really drawn to the GT40 because the GT40s, as you know, were race cars first and street cars second. And that's why I was drawn to that. But of course I want to do my own version, right? And I still want to wide body it, and I want to modernize it. So I'm doing a lot of crazy stuff and breaking the rules again on this one. So it's really a name that kind of fits my style. It's kind of become a brand for me, unofficially. I'm still doing this all for me. I'm building my own cars for me. I'm not trying to sell them or anything like that. I get lots of offers.
Yeah, right. So when you say you're breaking all the rules, is that kind of what you mean? Like, hey, I'm not building these for other people or to fit a certain genre or you meet a certain set of expectations. I just have something in mind, and I'm focused on that. And you're really not concerned about like tearing up a GT40. That might be sacrilege for some. Is that an example of rule breaking?
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen. I see these days, 3D renders are pretty popular on like Instagram and stuff like that. So occasionally I see people doing something wild with renders, but nobody dares do that with a real one, right? And when I say real, this is a Superformance car. It's a physical car, right? But they are continuation cars. They're not. This is not an original car with race with actual race history from the 60s. No, I wouldn't cut up one of those. But
so settle down, everybody. He's not tearing up a real Ford GT40.
Yeah,
millions of dollars. Okay.
Yeah, the Superformance cars are built almost identical to the original GT40s. So it's super cool to see how the chassis is made and stuff like that. You know, it's basically a monocoque chassis, kind of almost like a tub, like you would see a McLaren nowadays, but it's done with stamped steel and spot welded together. You know, kind of the way that's how they built the race car. So yeah, I just I do my own thing, and it really is a blend between I'm really inspired and in love with the race car stuff, but I want the livability of being able to drive it around town and live with it. You know, the ride is good. Usually I spend good money on nice shocks and stuff. You know, I have AC in them because I want to be comfortable, right? Like, my opinion is that if the car is too uncomfortable, I'm not gonna drive it, right? Like, if I'm in a rush, or if I need to drive to the office or something like that, like a lot of times you get in a hurry. I wanted to be able to drive these cars all the time, you know. Ideally,
you want to be able to go to the next quarantine cruise, and you know, in the middle of summer, without, you know, losing 10 pounds of water weight, right?
yeah, I've had some race cars. I've had some real race cars that I converted to street cars. They were real race cars that went around racetracks, and that's what they were built for, tube chassis and everything. And I put bodies on them, and I got them registered, and I could drive them around town, but they were awful. I mean, they were really cool to look at, and they were cool cars at car shows, but they were not. They were not pleasant to drive. You know, they really beat you up, uncomfortable, and hard to get in and out of, and all that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of stuff that I try to avoid on these. But if you look at the Mustang, I think everybody's surprised. The outside's very almost show car. You know, it's a show car quality, like paint job on it and body work, and it's very artistic, the style. So, but then they look on the inside, and it is quite raw, but it still has a style to it, as opposed to a lot of real race cars. They'll just put a big piece of aluminum up for the dash, right, and just drill holes in it, and
a couple of switches.
Yeah, and so, you know, so I'm inspired by the race stuff, but then I take it, and I do an art pass on it, and I really make it, you know, pleasing to be around, pleasing to look at. And so there's a style on top of it, and that's really.
So you know, you mentioned the artistic element that you've imposed on the Ruffian, and I'm sure you're doing the same thing on the GT40. But ultimately, I think because of this, you know, unusual or rare combination of street meets race car with design, if you will, that's why you got recognized for the Ruffian Mustang with the Hot Wheels community, and you were entered into that competition, and ultimately you became a fan favorite. You know, I mean, so what was your response there? Is that why you think the Ruffian got involved in that competition?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, you know, like I said, I built a car for me. I wasn't intending to sell it. I didn't build it for anybody else. So I just built a car that I liked, and that I was very passionate about, you know. And so I didn't, you know, after SEMA, the car started blowing up on the internet and Instagram and stuff. Yeah. And then through that, you know, the Hot Wheels was doing the Legends tour, and I just had a bunch of people elbowing me all the time and messaging me and saying, "Hey, you need to enter this. The car's perfect for this," you know. And so it came down to the wire. It actually came down to like the night before the deadline to enter. And I was like, man, if I don't enter, I'm always going to kind of regret it and wonder what could have been, you know? So I stayed up, I don't know, it's like 4 a.m. or something, putting together the write-up and the videos and stuff like that to submit it. And yeah, I mean, the fact that it was the fan favorite, I didn't win the competition, and that's okay. And the car that did is amazing. but I still got fan favorite out of the whole deal, and
Right.
that's the right. And it's surprising, and so it just kind of reinforces to me that I'm on the right track, and that if I really love something, then other people are destined to really love it too. So it just gave me a lot of motivation to keep doing what I want to do.
Well, I'll tell you what, want to switch gears, get into GT40, but one last comment about the Ruffian and your style. I think the ultimate compliment is the response that you get on social media. You know, I've got a couple pages out there on Instagram, a couple of Facebooks, and, you know, YouTube, and, you know, the usual things, because I'm running a business and it's part of what you do when you run a business. But the response that you get just on Instagram alone, giving people insight into your builds, and we're going to do some of that today, speaks volume. I mean, it's just incredible the number of followers, and not just the followers, but the engagement you get on your Instagram page for Ruffian. I mean, people would die if they could pay for that, but they can't. Whatever you're doing is interesting to many, many people in the car community.
Yep. I certainly appreciate it. It means a lot. Keeps me going, you know, whenever I do posts and people are excited about it. And I really like sharing all the work and all the steps. You know, this stuff. I did this in a 2-car garage. It's all, the Mustang was done with basic tools. I'm getting a little more techie with the GT40, but with the Mustang, I mean, it was all labor and hand tools, you know, and so I've had a lot of people that are like, oh, I've had a Mustang for 10 years and you've inspired me. Like I can see how to build it now, and I can see what I want to do now. Right. So I'm very happy and eager actually to share like the processes and the tools and how I got to it, you know, to the end result, you know. So that stuff's been, and that's actually one of the things that gets the most attention on my Instagram account, is when I share sort of like how did I build the fender flares and how did I do the vents and that sort of thing. So people are really interested in that. I think we're going to see a surge of, you know, I worried for a while that hot rodding was going to die, you know, as more people just have commuter cars, and with the electric cars coming and stuff, that like wrenching and building hot rods and stuff was gonna pass. But I think there's going to be a new surge, you know, as people look for hobbies and have interest in other things. So we'll see a resurgence of it, I think.
Yeah, I think there's been a renaissance even during these COVID days. We had you on our show in January of 2019 or 2020, so it was a year and a month ago. And that was right before COVID hit. And, you know, the car scene was active and, you know, so on and so forth. But what I've seen from my business since COVID started in earnest at about March, you know, it's been madness. This is, for many, their only escape from the insanity, you know, of life, or COVID, or just the stress and pressures of, you know, managing a family, running a business, trying to keep jobs, trying to, you know, keep the kids from killing their mother or vice versa, their father, you know. So I think cars have taken on a real importance in this environment, and it's a great reminder of they're not just things, they're really hobbies, and they're a way for people to express themselves as they engage in the hobby.
Yeah, I read somewhere at some point that like accomplishment is one of the greatest contributors to happiness. And I really kind of believe that. Like as soon as I got done with the Mustang, I was on to building the next thing, and I love that car, you know. But it's probably been in your facility for a month or two.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm happy to be working on other things. Like every time I get another step done, another step closer to being done with the GT40, like for me, it's very satisfying. I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. And so, yeah, I can see, especially now, especially with people being stuck at home, you know, finding an outlet like this is just the best solution.
Yeah, I think it is. Hey, let's take a minute and thank one of our sponsors here before we get we started on the GT40. Are you looking for a smarter way to charge your car's battery? Most of you are, I'm sure. Our friends at C-Tech lead the way in the care and maintenance of vehicle batteries. C-Tech's unparalleled knowledge And continuous investment in innovation means they offer high quality, reliable chargers that are effective, easy to use, and most importantly, safe for the user and their car's electric system. The quality of CTEK's products make them the trusted company of the world's most recognizable car brands. Get yours today at smartercharger.com and type in the code SoCal. Remember, that's all caps at checkout and get yourself a 10% discount on all CTEK products. All right, we promised these folks we'd talk about the GT40 and maybe start with telling us about what you wanted to do versus what a stock Superformance GT40 delivered, because you've had those, and tell us what what were the key things that you wanted to accomplish and are accomplishing.
So yeah, from the Superformance cars, like I said, they're one of the reasons I was really drawn to them. You know, there's other manufacturers of GT40 replicas, but the Superformance cars are the most accurate, and also, you know, the interiors and stuff are just leaps and bounds above everybody else. They have AC. They're just a really nice setup, but they do come minus the motor and transmission. So no matter what, if you buy a Superformance car, you're going to need to choose a motor and a transmission. So I mean, that's part of it, is figuring out what that is. But of course, you know, if you buy one new, you can also spec whatever paint you want. So it's a little hard to see because it's all masked up, but this paint on this one is actually a Toyota color.
No kidding.
Yeah, get myself out of the way there. It's the cavalry blue that you'll see on the Toyota Tundras and stuff now.
Oh yeah, I got it.
So I don't know why, but I'm really drawn to, and they're becoming kind of hip right now, but I'm drawn to the paints that are non-metallic. They're just a solid color.
Yeah.
So the Ruffian is a 1976 Porsche olive green color, and there's no metallic in it or anything. It's just a solid paint color. And then this is like the blue version of that green. It's kind of a desaturated blue, right. And it's
kind of reminds me of Ford's Calypso blue or whatever they put on the Mustangs. Like some of the Mach 1s and some of the Boss 302s, maybe just a slight darker than that.
Yeah, so started with the color, but then you can get them in the rear with narrow or wide or extra wide, and so that red GT40 I had the extra wide body in the back, but in the front is what it is, and you can only fit kind of skinny tires up front. So what we're working on here is wide body new fenders for the front and the rear, so I can fit wider tires. Primarily, I can fit as much tire as I want in the rear, but up front I need more fender if I'm gonna run wider tires in the front. So it'll be wide body front and rear. We're gonna do some stripe work on it, and you know, I bought people are kind of surprised, but I got from Superformance, I bought a used GT40 from them.
I'm not surprised, but some of the people that might be looking.
Yeah. Well, the Superformance cars, they don't really go down in value. So you can buy one and drive one for a year or 5 years or whatever, and then turn around and sell it. And generally you're going to get your money back.
Awesome.
Which is really, really cool. One of the few cars I've been able to do that with, like probably the only cars I've been able to.
Like most of us, to be honest.
Yeah. So I bought a red one from them that was used, and I drove it around to get a sense, really, to learn about the car and learn what it was and what it wasn't, and that really informed me a lot. You know, if I had just bought this and that was it, and I was working on it, like, I wouldn't know what it was like until it was done, and then maybe there would be stuff I was unhappy with. So for me, like, the steering's really heavy. I do a lot of autocrossing. It's a manual rack and pinion. You'd think that mid-engine that the steering would be fine in the front, but it's really heavy. And where I'm going wide body and wider tires up front, I installed on this one electronic assist, and it tapers off with speed. So there's a lot of stuff like that going into the car, and again, it's that thing of like making a race car trying to turn a race car into a daily driver almost, not necessarily a daily, but like you're happy to take it out on a Thursday, Friday and drive it to work or to the grocery store. I love to go to Home Depot and,
Yeah.
and
start off car alarms, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we haven't revealed. I'd love to show everybody what the concept is. We did some concept of the finished car. It's going to have side skirts, a front spoiler, a rear spoiler, wide body. But we have to keep that stuff under wraps because I wound up hooking up with Toyo tires. And that's where went to SEMA in 2019 with the Ruffian Mustang and was at the Toyo Tires booth. And so the Mustang was fully revealed there for the first time. And that's generally kind of what these vendors like to do, is like to reveal your car, the first time everybody, the whole completed thing, So yeah, we haven't really shown what the end result, what the intention is, but it's definitely, we know what we're shooting for. But the idea of the GT40, it's a little bit different than the Mustang, where the Mustang was more of a Trans Am tribute. The GT40, right, that was already a Le Mans car. And so it's more about taking this old GT40 and then updating it and modernizing it and trying to change the methods and technologies. Like I was saying, the Mustang was built almost entirely with hand tools, right? And so, but the GT40, I'm using 3D scanners, 3D printers, LED lighting. I'm using solid state battery switches. It's a 5.2 liter Ford Illuminator Coyote motor in there. So I'm trying to shove in all the technology, modern technology and some modern style elements in there as well, and just kind of take an old GT40 and then modernize it.
So you're modernizing, but you're optimizing performance as well. You're doing both. You're improving the drivability on regular street driving, but you're modernizing, but you're also improving performance. Safe?
Yeah, I'm not I wouldn't ever want to do something that was going to hurt performance, right?
Right.
I mean, maybe you could argue that like the electronic assist power steering, there's an electric motor attached to that, and so there's a little bit of extra weight, and maybe you would argue that that's not good. But in the stuff that I do, I generally autocross, and it's a lot of slow speed racing in parking lots, and it's a lot of degrees of turning. There's usually average autocross is like 2,000 degrees of turning, whereas the average big track is 200 degrees of turning of the steering wheel. Okay. So it's a lot of lock to lock, and so I'm going to do better with power steering. I'm going to be faster with power steering than without it. So
gotcha.
So
tell us a little bit about, so we understand a lot of the body mods. We understand that you want big, big contact patch on the front, which was limited by the lack of flares in the front. But what about the motor and the transmission? You've had those things apart, and that's some of the most engaging, intriguing things going on your Instagram page. Or I'd say people are like, what's he doing pulling that stuff apart? So tell us about what the objective is there as you get into the mechanicals, the heart of this thing.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a modern Ford motor. This is a crate only motor. So it's basically the GT350 block and pistons and heads, but it's a cross plane crank instead of the flat plane crank. So it's not going to shake the car apart. And it makes more power. It's a hotter cam. It's not a motor that they've ever put in a street car. So, the emissions is not a concern. Yeah. So it's 580 horsepower and it's aluminum. So it's lightweight. Again, I'm not going to do stuff to sacrifice you know, as much as I'd love to put an old FE 427 in the car, it would just weigh, you know, 150 pounds, 200 pounds more, and I just can't bring myself to do that. So yeah, it's a lightweight motor, and lately I've been working on the headers, the design for the exhaust system. You know, this motor was never intended to be in a car like this, and so fitment in everything in the GT40 is just, there's no room for anything, and it's such a tiny car, and but it is amazing to look at the way they engineered it, you know, back in the day. They saved a lot of weight by, you know, one bolt will attach 3 things to it.
Yeah.
You know, whereas on a normal car, there would be 3 bolts to attach to 3 things. And so you can see how they saved a lot of weight, but it does make it a pain in the butt to work on when it's like, I only want to get this one piece off, but I have to take 3 pieces off, you know, to get to the one piece. So
are you constrained by the design of the car in the back, you know, where the, you know, from the middle of the car to the back where the engine's at and the back? Are you thinking about modifying any of those panels back there to give yourself more room and changing?
Yeah, so I'm not modifying any of the chassis stuff because, you know, there's stuff there that's above my pay grade.
Some structural engineers have figured.
Yeah, you know, and that's been, you know, those cars were proven at Le Mans, and so I'm not going to go in there and like cut up the chassis and then and then change the way. But you know, I'm fine taking the jigsaw to the body.
Okay. All right.
So we are. I am going to have to, with the motor. I'm running a roof scoop. I'm gonna have to. So the back glass is gonna come out, and then we've got a new window piece that goes in there, and a roof scoop. So it'll take fresh air in from above the car, and it'll be sealed off. You know, there won't be any hot air getting in from anywhere else. And it'll be using, you know, it's a new Ford PC power control module. You know, the computer running it and all is brand new Ford stuff. So it'll be a mass air meter car. So yeah, roof scoop, cutting up the, you know, in fact, 2 nights ago, I put the deck lid, the rear clamshell on for the first time and went to go close it. And of course it doesn't close because of this,
all your headers,
this Illuminator Ford motor in there, you know, so I had to get the Dremel out and cut away some fiberglass, and there's always a little bit of a twinge,
fear and trepidation.
Yeah, when you start cutting into a car. It was a perfectly good brand new Superformance car when I started, and now I'm cutting it up.
So it's sacrilege. But one of the things that, you know, it's great to hear about what you're doing, you know, and you make one change, like decide to go with a different engine, and boom, it's dominoes, right? Everywhere, because the space is so limited. It's almost like they designed the motor to fit in that thing, and then you decide with, you know, a better motor, and now, you know, it's kind of the trickle effect. But show us, if you could, the headlights. I thought that was one of the most fascinating journeys of what you did there. I don't think anybody understood why you were doing it, what the objective was, but it was radical that you were, you know, basically throwing out the existing headlights in the bucket and the whole thing and putting in LEDs and, you know, I think from Harley Davidson light bulbs and stuff like that. I mean, hey, you know, and then you were there cutting on the front of that clamshell, and I'm like, I think it made people nervous just good.
Yeah. Well, the GT40, the body design is so beautiful. The shapes are so, I mean, it's one of the most beautiful cars ever made, in my opinion.
Iconic, yeah.
And, you know, just like the Mustang, I think the 69, 70 Mustang is one of the best looking fastback, one of the best looking Mustangs ever made. And I didn't want to spoil that, right? I don't want to do something to work against that. And it's the same with the GT40. Again, it's one of the most beautiful cars ever built. And I certainly don't want to do anything that's going to work against that. But there are things, and in particular, the old headlights, man, they look so awful. If you ever focus on them and actually like pay attention to the headlights, they're these really huge rectangular things just shoved in there, and it just really bugged me. And so I think I bought.
Was that the first thing that you noticed right away? Like,
I mean, that was definitely it's always been on my priority list. Like, okay,
let's put it that way.
we're gonna do something about the headlights. I don't know what yet, but we're gonna do something, you know. And I probably bought 7 or 8 different headlight assemblies, you know, headlight conversion kits for Panteras, headlights for Hellcat Chargers, like Toyota Avalons, like all different kinds of headlights to kind of cut up and try to fit and make work in there.
And that was your first thought, was I'll just go with an existing conversion kit for a different car, and
right,
it's easy, right?
Yeah, and it just, nothing ever fit because it wasn't designed. It's a very specific space where the headlights are in the it's very specific shape. And anytime that you kind of try to retrofit another car's headlights into a body that wasn't designed for it, like it just starts to look really funky. So I basically, at the end of the day, I gave up. And then, like you said, I started buying some different motorcycle headlights, LED headlights, and taking them all apart, taking the circuit boards out, cutting up the wiring, rewiring everything myself, using the lenses from them and stuff, and designing my own headlight buckets on the computer, and then 3D printing those. And I had to find a print material you could actually use. Most of the time when you 3D print stuff, it's plastic, and it's just for temporary use or whatever, just for fun. But I really, you know, unless I went and got this like cast in aluminum or something, like I really wanted to be able to print something that I could use, like a finished product, you know. Right. So that it was difficult, and then figuring out, you know, the settings to print that stuff. So anyway, I wound up designing and building my own headlight buckets, and I'm super happy with them. Lots of people seem really excited about them. Lots of people want to buy them, and I'm like, I probably have 500 hours in them. Like I would never do another set. You know what I mean? Like,
do you have one of those headlight buckets hanging around?
I'll show you. I should be able to walk over there as long as we have enough light. Let's see. Oh no, it's gonna be dark, isn't it?
No, hey, we can see it, Chris. That's not bad. Wow, that's amazing. It looks space age. So you got two round lights underneath.
Yeah.
Oh wow, so cool. So man, that is awesome. And so the bulbs some of them came from Harley's. Is that right?
Yeah, an aftermarket Harley LED headlight kit. You know, the circuit boards have LEDs on them, and then some of the like the turn signals are out of that Toyota Avalon.
Toyota Avalon, of course it is.
Yeah, so there's bits and pieces.
You kind of went mad scientist. I mean, a lot of people would say, yeah, I get cutting up a car. Yeah, I get taking some lights or something out of somebody else's car. But now what we're talking about is colliding 3D printing with circuit boards. And now you've become somewhat of a, designer / fabricator, but you're also becoming an electrician. Did you enjoy the journey? Did you have these skills, or is there hope for your average garage guy that he can just learn how to go do this stuff? I mean, or did you have some background?
So I do have a little bit of background. We build computer games, and so I'm on the computer all the time. And I'm on the art side. I've always been on the art side on computer games, and so I've been doing that for almost 25 years. And I've done a little bit of 3D modeling, but never. I've just tinkered around with it over the years. So this is the most 3D modeling I've ever done, and in programs that I've not used before. So 100%. Like if you're used to getting onto the computer at all and using any software, there are some basic 3D packages. Like SketchUp, for example, is one that I use regularly. It is by far the simplest. You can watch a tutorial video and in 20 minutes you'll be able to model stuff. It may not be the sexiest, prettiest model, but you'll be able to model 3D objects, in like 20 minutes with that program. So that aside, I got maybe a little bit of a head start from the industry that I'm in, but all this stuff has been the 3D printing, the modeling in that software, the circuit boards and stuff. That's all been like research it online, try and fail.
Good.
I bought
know that for the average Joe, I mean, that's we try and fail 5 or 10 times get it right, or before we give it to somebody who's a professional. But you never give up. You continue to overcome the challenges that you face, and you never hire the professionals in your garage other than paint, right? I mean, your goal is to build this thing.
Yeah.
Pretty much complete, minus what? Some upholstery. Well, you had minimal upholstery in the Ruffian, but paint and upholstery, is that pretty much it that you outsource?
Yeah, the motors. Now I have built motors before, so I'm not avoiding it. But when you're trying to build an entire car,
yeah,
and particularly like the Mustang, when it's like every nut and bolt and stripped to nothing and then start over again, like I don't have the time or the garage space to have a block and pistons and to build the whole motor separate. And especially for the price you can get a lot of crate engines for and stuff these days. So I will buy a crate engine typically, even if I change the intake manifold and the exhaust or whatever. I might, I'll probably buy a crate engine for the stuff that I'm doing and an assembled transmission. But yeah, other than that, some stuff is bolt on. Like some of the Mustang suspension was bolt on. But you do your research and you find companies that you like to support and buy gear from them, and it gives you a good head start. So yeah, so like I don't design my own suspension. I understand the stuff, and the more I'm around the cars, the more I'm messing with camber settings and alignment settings and stuff like that, but it's not really my thing. So yeah, there are some things where just like I'm not good enough, and I don't really want to be good enough, right? Like I don't really enjoy paint to me is like very frustrating.
Well,
yeah.
Maybe so, Eastwood said it best.
Yeah.
You remember that line? Man's got to know his limitations. Even Ruffian, Chris Ashton has his. So there's hope for all of us.
There's some awesome builders I've seen that do everything soup to nuts. They paint their own cars even, and that's awesome, right? But I'm just going to tackle the things that I'm excited about, that I'm interested in. And if I'm not, and somebody else is interested in it, and they're going to do a better job than me, then I'm happy to hand it over. Yeah,
Max did a great job from South County Auto Body on the Ruffian, and that's just part of her charm, is that immaculate green paint with black and red, highlights or trim, whatever. And I think the color choice was actually brilliant.
Yeah.
Again,
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's it never doesn't elicit a response. There's never been somebody that walks by a Ruffian and doesn't say, "Hey, I've seen that car," or "Oh my God, what is this?" Like for sure, 100%. And so it evokes emotion. And I think what's happened out on the street today is very little does when it comes to automobiles. Even the new Audis or the BMWs or the Mercedes, there's just not a lot that catches people's attention. The GT40, the red one, when you had it, when you brought it in, people could hear it and feel it coming from miles away.
Right.
Guys ready, coming from blocks away. So it kind of had its own red carpet and welcoming committee. By the time you pull in, the sound's bouncing off other buildings, and here they come. I don't even know that they saw the car.
Right.
So
yeah.
Entrance. So sound, color, just your expression, the way that you expressed it with Ruffian. I think it catches people off guard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I always feel like it's I get it with I mean, the way the world works right now is the dealers have to buy a bunch of cars to stock their parking lot with, right? And they're going to pick safe colors, a color that doesn't offend anybody, right? And it's going to be silver, it's going to be white, it's going to be black, or it's going to be gray, because those are super safe. Nobody really hates silver, right? It's just like, maybe you're not excited about it, but you don't necessarily hate it. So if you're looking for a Prius and there's a silver one, if the price is right, I'll take silver, or I'll take white, whatever, right? But it's like, when we're building these cars that are passion projects, I think, that's where you need to sort of clean the slate and think from scratch and imagine what it could be, and go after it.
Well, if you looked in my warehouse lately here in SoCal Classic, you might have noticed a few of your cars. But the one thing that we've noticed is people have said, it's starting to look like Skittles out there.
Yeah.
And your car is part of the opportunity and part of the problem, depending on how you look at it. We've got a green GT3 RS, and it's just vibrant. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess it's a very popular green. We've gotten a couple of cars that are yellow lately. We've got a lot of orange cars and a lot of red cars lately. And what you realize is that I think tastes are changing, and the metallics are going away, and these vibrant, rich colors that we thought were crazy wacky in the late 60s and early 70s that, Dodge and Mopar was cranking out, and Ford too. That was crazy, but now crazy's back. It's okay to say that.
Yeah.
Because everything else prior to that was kind of boring. We were boring for a while,
Yeah. I mean, I think I can see I can see not wanting to stand out depending on what the car is, right? If it's your daily,
right.
Maybe you don't want to stand out and you just want to drive to work and the grocery store and that sort of thing. But when you get these special cars, this makes sense. Doesn't mean that it has to be a super bright color, right? Like, I think and I think a lot of the companies, as you said, like, I think it's coming in. Toyota is just killing it on the color. There's so many good colors on their trucks and cars. So we are seeing a lot of it now. A lot of this, like,
Hey, Chris, are you there still?
they're vibrant colors, but they're a little bit desaturated. Oh, there we go.
You're
back again. It says my internet connection is unstable.
It's your internet though, not you. That's good. Excellent.
Yeah.
Not that anybody questioned that. I was like, where'd Chris go? Hey, quick question about GT40 Ruffian. Is she going to be the same color blue that you have her now? Or is that to be announced? Or is Chris thinking about that?
Yeah, it is, but we're going to do some fun stuff, probably with carbon fiber. We're going to do some, you can color carbon fiber with colored resin.
Okay.
So we're looking at doing some stuff there. I mean, it remains to be seen. But then I said we're planning a stripe package, and I don't want to reveal too much right now. But there'll be graphics on it. So what you see is right now is just kind of the bare canvas.
Okay, but we're close. At least we got the rough color idea, right? Okay. Cool. All right. Well, let's take another minute and thank one of our other sponsors of this show, and they're a local house right here in good old SoCal, good old Wicked Mobile Detailing. Wicked's a luxury mobile detailing, paint restoration, and paint protection service right here in good old SoCal. They specialize in high-end paint correction, self-healing ceramic, and graphene coatings, clear bra, and many other services. Check out their YouTube channel, Wicked Auto Detailing, and see their professionalism, perfection, and unbeatable customer service, which you can always expect from a Wicked service. Contact them at 617-901-1417 and give your car the devilish good looks it deserves. All right, Chris. Let's talk about future products. Is there anything else before we leave GT40 Ruffian that you want to bring to people's attention? We've kind of covered on most of the big things. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that's happening on this bad boy? Or show us that you can show us?
There's a lot going on. I haven't, I can show you some stuff that I've played around with on the back end a little bit.
Cool. Absolutely.
The GT40s, the Superformance 40s, they have these vents in the back of the car, and the vents are, for me nowadays, looking at them, it looks like chicken wire on the back. And so it kind of was bugging me. So let's see here. Yeah.
Yes, very familiar with it. Yeah.
So now these are, this is ABS plastic.
Right.
And it's more of a modern, modern design, modern style, just a cleaner look. Nice. And then this taillight here is an aftermarket kit for a conversion kit for a Mustang GT, like a 2016 Mustang GT or something. But these are LEDs. When the turn signal turns on, they go around in circles.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So there's just, all over the car, I kind of touching like everything. But it still looks like a GT40. That's the trick, I think, is to improve the looks and remove all the warts and add the functionality that I want to the car, and just make it look super kick-ass.
Well, that it does, and we can't wait. So appreciate you showing us that bad boy. I don't even know what to call it. Are we still calling it GT40 Ruffian, or do you have a name for it?
It's going to be the Ruffian 40.
Ruffian 40.
Yep.
All right, everybody, try to remember that. I'll do the same. That's great.